started.
There it goes. All right, 7 o'clock.
Okay. Okay, and let me see. We have 27 people with us, so maybe others will join. You want me to get started?
Go ahead.
Okay. Welcome to MELS 601, our weekly Zoom class. I hope you've had a good weekend. I know a lot of you have been working hard because Dr. Lamb and I have had a lot of work to look at, haven't we, Dr. Lamb? So I know you have been working. I hope that those of you that have been affected by the storm, I hope that, things are becoming more normalized in your world. I know some of the school systems are still out. Ours is still out. I know New Hanover, Dr. Lamb, they don't know when that area is going to be able to start back. So, in South Carolina, I know that some of those schools have not started back. So, but for the most part, I will say that in spite of the storm, in spite of the circumstances, those of you that were even affected by the storm, you've been good troopers and you've pulled through with your work for the most part. Dr. Lamb and I are still going to continue working with you over the next few weeks, giving you an opportunity to catch up if you are behind. I will say, Dr. Lamb, that there are not many, but there's probably, I can count on one hand, some that were not really directly affected by the storm, and others have probably done a lot more quality work than they've done, and they were affected by the storm. So if that's you, then you just need to pick up some speed. You need to get the work done, and you need to get it into us. Today, this evening, we're going to go back and review task 4, and then we're going to look at our the requirements for our case studies. Okay, Dr. Lamb, what would you like to say at this time?
Well, I covered this last week, but I'm going to go back over it again. You will need to make sure in prompt 1 that you have at least a paragraph or 2 that addresses each of these prompts that are on the screen: importance of the action plan, alignment with student outcomes, learning outcomes. You're going to write the plan narratively, and then, of course, you will summarize the plan in the graphic work.
Go back up there to those again. I will tell you, in looking at what I looked at, and I looked at a lot of them extensively the weekend, those that have begun to turn in task 4, and several people have, just be reminded that you can't pick and choose from you've got to say something about every one of those areas. You can't just pick and choose. And there were some when it got down to down near the bottom to, well, I'll just use an example, formative and summative assessment criteria. Nothing was listed, so I had to send it back and tell you, you've got to talk about formative and summative assessment criteria. And Dr. Lamb, I will tell you that is still an area that some are struggling with. I think they're having a problem with some of them understanding what is actually meant by formative. So we probably need to talk about that again.
Okay. Formative and summative assessment. As we go across from left to right on our graphic organizer, specific activity, we're going to implement 3D reading. Timeline, we're going to do it in March. Person responsible is me and Dr. Stedman. Resources needed, we're going to need $500 to buy materials. Formative assessment methods. Administration is going to do routine walkthroughs through the classrooms where this is being implemented to make sure that faculty are implementing this with fidelity. Formative assessment in this case is of the adults who are supposed to provide the program, treatment, or fix that you have suggested to meet your most pressing need.
But it's not a test score, Dr. Lamb,
No,
and some are putting down benchmark testing as the formative assessment and then as the summative assessment.
No. Formative assessment is of the adults providing the program. Just because you tell them to do it doesn't mean that they'll do it. You have to go and check on it. If you don't supervise it, it won't happen. And so formative assessment is of the adults. Summative assessment can be benchmarks along the way, and then the final exam, which is M-class DIBELS, end-of-grade, end-of-course testing. Those are all summative assessments. They are not, just because you measured them halfway through doesn't mean it's a summative assessment. Summative is of the adults presenting the program. It's a fidelity check to make sure that they are presented it as intended. That's what formative assessment is. If you don't write that into an action plan, it won't happen.
Dr. Lamb, Shakai, I think, just asked the question, would a checklist serve as a formative assessment method? It could, but, based on how you use it, just like a walkthrough, when administrators do walkthroughs, that can be a form of a formative assessment. But again, just walking through, but you've got to do something with it. So, if you do a checklist and you do a walkthrough, then you need to briefly explain how it's going to be used, because that is a form of monitoring for program fidelity. Okay.
All right.
Kelly asked, could the administration or the candidate, either or both, if you are, if you're taking on the leadership role, and if you are allowed to go in and monitor, things that's being done under the direction of your administration, then yes, yours can be a part of the formative assessment. Okay, that's correct, Shakai.
Okay. Summatives for students, that's correct. That's where we check for the results to see if what we're doing is working with students. Formative is of adults, summative is of students. Really simple.
Just like your EOG testing results, that's a summative assessment.
All right. Once you have your plan together, you will need to share it with your administration for possible implementation. Not required if they say no, or if it don't have the money or whatever. That's not part of it. But you still, but the discussion that you would have with them, these are the 5 things. Again, it's not a pick and choose. This is not an a la carte menu. You must address all 5 of these things. Building efficacy, sustain strategies for sustained growth, issues concerning diversity, resources, and establish a shared vision of learning. These are the things that you would share with them during that meeting. These would be discussion points that you would have with them.
And Dr. Lamb, I told them to have proof of the meeting. All that is an agenda. If you can get a picture of you presenting, that's good, but it's not required. But you need an agenda. And then I would suggest that in this section, when you meet with them, some type of narrative, talking about your meeting with the administration. There should be some dialogue. What did they say? Are they going to possibly move forward with the plan? Is it something that's going to be, just talk about what they have to say about it.
Yeah. Let me briefly run through these. Building efficacy, that's staff. That's the whole idea here. You're building their capacity. Efficacy is how effective you are at your job, and obviously the whole idea here is to build efficacy among your staff members, to have them be more effective in leading student outcomes. Strategies for sustained growth. It's a continuous improvement model. Issues concerning diversity. The whole idea is you're working in subgroups. Resources, what you're going to need, what's it going to take. and establishing a shared vision of learning. That the notion here is that we're building a culture of teaching and learning in our building where the most important thing is student success, not ease of day for the faculty. The goal of administration is not to make the day of the faculty easy. If they can, that's wonderful, but that's not our goal. Our goal is student learning.
Yes, Angie, prompt 2 is the administration meeting. You use that with your administration. Yes.
That's true. All right.
Yes, the font should be 12.
Yeah, you can wrap text. That's correct. All right. Task 5 is where you write your competency analysis. Now, the thing here is you write it in an active tense that you did something. Don't sit and tell us that what you've learned without telling us what you did to learn it. That's the mistake that you can make in writing your competencies. Yes, we want to know what you've learned, but we want to know what you did that caused you to learn what you learned. The candidate reviewed an IEP. The candidate attended a school improvement team meeting. The candidate attended a transition and training meeting. The candidate was part of EC teacher interviews. The candidate attended a parent night in an alternative school. The candidate created a progress report. The candidate shared best practices PowerPoint with staff. You notice the reason why I've got these here is that there was some doing going on here that led to the learning, that showed competency. Make sure that when you write your competencies, that you tell us what you did, that you did something to achieve competency in these areas. And then, of course, here is an example of how you do your references. Let me get one more question here. You don't upload artifacts with competencies. Let me be clear. You do not upload artifacts with competencies here.
You save those for the folio.
Save those for the folio. You do not add artifacts when you upload your evidence narrative and task stream in your DRF portfolio. That's a good question because it segues me into my next one. Please remember, when you upload your evidence narrative in your task stream DRF portfolio that we set up for you, you just put the evidence narrative. Your artifacts go separately into your competency folio. Now, let's answer these questions. You're going to do all 21. There is no list to pick from. You're going to do 12 with the APSEL and 9 with the APTEL. Now, if we go back to our task and prompts, it tells you that the 8 that you have to do that are required with the APSEL, and you get to pick 4, and then when you do the APTEL, you do the other 9. Let me say that again. There are 8 required for the APSEL. Then you have to pick 4 more for a total of 12. And then the 9 that you didn't do with the APSEL, you do with the APTEL. That's the way that works. Let me go back and find for you Dr. Stedman, you'll have to address deadlines.
I'm looking right now while you're to make sure. I know we've pushed everything, and still some are still. I'm having to work with a few because of not being in school. But I'm looking at that now to make sure that I'm getting it right.
All right. In the Mel's Handbook and in our task and prompts, it says these are the required 601 competencies. These 8 are required, and you're to pick 4 more. It says that clearly. These 8 are required with an additional 4 to be selected by you, totaling 12. And then you keep track of the 12 that you did for the AppSell, and you do the other 9 of the 21 when you do the AppTell. But these are the 8 that must be here, and then you select any additional 4 that you want, and then you do the other 9 when we do the AppTell second half of the course later this semester. Everybody, I hope's got that. 12 and 9. What page is that on in the handbook? I have no idea. Page 4. It's in everywhere you see where it gives you the directions for the AppSell, you will find this. It's in the handbook. It's in the task and prompts. It's everywhere. All right. So, but the main thing here is I want to see that you did something. Tell us what you did. Now, when we get to the competency folio a little bit later, and we're not going to talk about that tonight because that gets confusing. Let's stick to the DRF portfolio evidences right now. That's why we told you save them, write down where you can find them, save your competencies for right now, your competency proofs, your artifacts for right now. We'll work on those in a couple of weeks when we get near the end. Need to be focused right now on completing your action plan in task 4 and writing these for task 5. What I find is when students start trying to figure out where they are and they get confused, next thing I know, they write competency analysis in their competency folio, which is not acceptable. Or they try to upload a bunch of artifacts with this document, which is not acceptable. We don't want artifacts with this document. We want narrative with this document in the competency folio. We don't want narrative. We want the artifacts. So let's stay in our lane here and make sure we get this right. Once we get through this one, we'll let you start pacing yourself on things like that one, like that. But let's stay where we are for right now.
Dr. Lamb.
Yes.
Okay. Remember, we told them we were moving everything up a week. So this is week 6. So when you look at the end of week 6, what is actually due is what was due at the end of week 5. So if you go to week 5, it tells you the things that are due for that week. Those are the things that, under the best case scenario, that's what you should be submitting if you haven't already submitted it this week. We're still working with pushing everything. We're working a week behind schedule is what we're working with at this point. So week 5 assignments are actually what will be due at the end of this week until we get caught back up. So that's all you've got to do. You don't have to you just go look at the end. What was due for week 5 is what you would make sure it has been submitted by the end of this week. Many of you have already caught up, so but that is how you keep up with where we are at this point until we do get caught back up, and we will get caught back up. Okay, that's it, Dr. Lamb. I wanted to clarify that.
All righty. All right. So that's tasks 4 and 5. We're going to be working on getting those done in the next couple of weeks here. And then we'll talk about what to do with our competencies.
The graphic organizer for task 3, there's
no graphic organizer.
There's not a graphic organizer for task 3.
No.
That is the one where you do the literature review and your annotated bibliography. but there's not a graphic organizer in there.
Are you talking about
I mean,
task?
Angela, were you talking about task 4, Angela or Angie? Detail how the PLC created. Now, that's not an organizer, it's multiple graphics. Now, that's talking about your charts, your graphs, anything that you use to explain the information. Graphic information.
There is no example of that. That's up to you, how you share the information with them. We don't even have to have a picture of that. You just detail how you did it. Now, if you want to include a picture of it or include it in there, that's fine, but that's not something that we do. That's up to you, how you do that. That's where you show that you've learned something along the way. But that's not a part of your paper. That's just an example. Again, that can be an artifact. And
again, Dr. Lamb, sometimes those are the things that push something, over the top. Those are the things that we look at to see if, what you're doing over and beyond what it just says you have to do.
Mm-hmm. How are you going to explain this to your audience? What visuals are you going to use? You're going to use figures, tables, charts, graphs, graphic organizers. How are you going to explain this to them? Tell us how you went about doing that. You can show an example of it, but don't try to embed a PowerPoint. Tell us what you did. You can show us a graphic or a figure, but that's not something that we tell you what it is. That's up to you. That's up to you. All right. So that should cover do we have the competencies that would no? Again, let me explain this one more time. You have 8 that are required for the AppSell. You pick any 4 that you want to do other than those 8, and the other 9 are the ones that go with the AppTel. I can't explain it any other way. There are none that go specifically with the AppTel. The only required ones for both the AppSell and the AppTel are the 8 for the AppSell. And you choose any 4 that you want to, and then you do 9 other ones for the AppTel. So the only requirement in terms of there are 8 that go with the AppSell. Then there's 4 at your choice, the other 9, whatever that is. So there is no, is there a total list of 20? Well, of course there's a total list of 21. Again, go back to your handbook.
That's right, Michelle. The remaining ones, the 9 that you have not used for the AppSell, will be what you do for the AppTel.
Back to the handbook. Page 48 in the handbook. Again, these are everywhere. We've given you a list. It's the same list that's in your intern handbook. It's the same one that's in your site supervisor handbook. It's the same one that's in the North Carolina Evaluation Manual. The same one in Mel's. Everywhere you look, you'll see the same 21 because these are the common 21 for educational administration. These are the common 21. You will find these on page 48 of our handbook. You'll find them in other places as well. I will give you a list of them separate in 2 weeks when we start looking at competency analysis and competency folio, where to find those artifacts. I will show you those at that time. But here they are in your handbook again. There are the 21. We have told you which 8 you have to do. Again, it's in the handbook on page 4. The 8 that you have to do, you pick 4 more of these, then the other 9 will go with the APTEL. You looked for it, but you couldn't find it. All right. I've got a couple of documents to make this much easier, but I'm not going to confuse you with them now. Just pick 8 and then do the 8 you're required to do, then pick 4 and you'll be good. It'll all work out. All right, let me move this again. All right, so this week for our class materials, let's see. We're beginning to look at our case studies. I want to make sure I cover those with you tonight. So the tab over here on the left-hand side, case study materials, you click on that tab, and the first thing you see is case study directions. So let me pull that up. So here's what you do. It's just this simple. Read the case study. Write 1 paragraph response for each of the questions in the case study. The Zoom master schedules and sends out the link and records this case study Zoom session. You'll do a case study Zoom session the same way you do a peer review. You'll all have your 1 paragraph response for each of the 4 questions, and you will share those during the case study session. Each team shares their written response, and the group then engages in a scholarly discussion of the responses led by the Zoom master. Group consensus is desirable and not require the scholarly discussion. And then, after you've discussed what you think the answer to the questions are, each candidate will write a 1-page, 2-part reflective summary of both the case study and the case study Zoom session. The case study part of the reflective summary will include an overview of the relevant points of the case, what you think is relevant. And then the case study Zoom session part of the reflective summary will include the takeaways, what you learned or what you took away from the scholarly discussion. So this should not be an overburdensome task. Since you already know how to do peer review, case study review should be fairly quick. And so here is the case study. It's not overly long, and it has 4 questions, as I said. At the end, you answer these first. You go on your Zoom session. You share these. You kind of decide, hope to get a consensus maybe you want about what the answers to these 4 questions are, and then you write a reflective summary of your time together.
And Dr. Lamb, they're designed so that the what you have learned in the development of the APSL, we should see and hear that language as you are looking at your case study. It's designed to align with what you have done and what you have learned with the APSL.
So the questions for this case study: what do you think of the way James handled his particular situation, considering his limited background? What more could be done to help the reading scores in the school? What additional resources could James utilize to help the school improve? What could he be sacrificing, if anything, by placing extraordinary emphasis only on the reading program? So those are the questions that you answer. You share those. Then you write your reflective summary. The first part of it is the main points of the case. Second part is what you took away from the meeting with your colleagues, maybe some points that they raised during that time.
Dr. Lamb, just remember, we're not interested in your opinion per se. You've done a lot with what does research say? What does data prove? So, those are the kinds of things that we will be looking for in your responses. We don't want to hear, well, in my opinion, that is not what we're looking for. If it's your opinion should be backed with some type of facts and some type of research-based evidence or information of that nature.
All right.
Dr. Lamb, while they're looking, I know this is going to come up again. Originally, the case study was due at the end of week 8. We still will not be back on schedule until after fall break. So by the end of week 9, which is fall break, by the end of week 9, we should be caught back up, and that is when, at the latest, the case studies should be submitted and completed.
So we have given you fair warning. We've given you a month, basically. And we'll remind you of this weekly. We won't spend this much time on it, but we'll remind you weekly that you need to be working on your case study. Now, this shouldn't take you a lot of time to do. It should take you no more than 30 minutes to read it and formulate your opinions. Another 30 minutes to write out your 4 questions. A 30-minute Zoom session, and then 30 minutes to an hour to write up your reflective summary. So this is a 3-hour project. This is a 3-hour project, and we're giving you plenty of notice on this. We think there's great value in case studies. I think there's learning for the individual, but I think there's also great value in the collaboration that you do. Collaboration takes a number of forms. I don't want to get too deep and philosophical tonight because generally I can't. But the whole notion here is if we only ever use technology to transmit information, I'm not sure that we're utilizing its fullest potential. We're trying to get you to use technology for collaboration, a professional sharing of ideas, opinion, some communication, some back and forth, maybe some conflict management. There's so much more that you can do with technology than just transfer information. If all we did was transfer information, we'd just email one another PowerPoint presentations. That's not the goal here. The goal here is to get you to learn how to work within a group and collaborate without having to be in the same room. Because more and more in education, we're going to find ourselves having to develop, to have, work on, develop, hone our collaboration skills in a virtual setting. I do a faculty meeting every other Monday. I've got, 21, Dr. Stebbins, we've got 21 faculty members.
Right.
I've got 2 of those here on campus with me. The other 19 are scattered all over 2 states. We don't have the money and they don't have the time to drive or fly in here on a regular basis. We've had to learn how to collaborate using technology. That's just the way of the world. It would be wonderful if we could pay for them all about once a month and we could all sit and have lunch and talk and share. They don't have the time and we don't have the money to do that. And what you're going to find is, even though you're in the same building with your colleagues, finding a common time to collaborate is beginning to be more and more difficult in modern times. And so there is great value in these. There's not only value in the learning from the case study itself, there's also value in learning to do this virtually. And that's why we eliminated 2 of the peer review Zoom sessions and added the 2 case studies to kind of expand your repertoire, give you a broader base of skills, or develop a broader base of skills within you for virtual collaboration. So that's what we've done.
And Dr. Lamb, I think our goal is to possibly move more into these case studies in 603 and 605, look more into that.
Yeah, I've got 1. Actually, I've got 2 in 603 right now. I'm looking to add more of those, but one of the things you'll see when we get to 603, you'll have a group of activities to do in discussion board, and they are just that. They're activities where you have to go and do things. But I think we're doing case studies, but we're not doing them as much collaboratively, but we will begin to do more collaboration in our 603 case studies and our 605 case studies, because there is value in the collaboration, not just in the case study itself, but there's value in the collaboration afterwards. My doctoral students and I meet Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. They do their case studies, and we meet for an hour and a half as a group. We do our Zoom sessions together. They work on their presentations in small group. They bring them back to the big group, and we start on Saturday morning, and we go through their presentations. I have them do PowerPoints. They have to do a PowerPoint presentation of their case studies, and then they have to write a reflection just like this, but we spend Saturday mornings till lunchtime. We go from 9 to 12, where we share these and do a virtual collaboration session on Saturday mornings. We get a lot out of it, and we're trying to do some more of that with you. They really like that. I'm not sure y'all would want to do Saturday mornings, but seem to enjoy it. All right, Dr. Stedman, I'm done.
Okay, that's it. That's all we were going to cover tonight. Again, make sure you're pacing yourself well. If you are not where you need to be, and you have not been impacted by the storm, and your schools have not been out, then you need to pick up the ball and you need to move with it. Those of you that are still affected by the storm, just keep in close communication with Dr. Lamb and me. We'll continue working with you until you can get things worked out. And as I said, for the most part, most of you have kept up in spite of the storm. So just we will not have a Zoom session on Thursday evening. Is that correct, Dr. Lamb?
Yeah, we're trying to let everybody not take up too much of their time, but I'm trying to let them catch up a little bit. And then we'll see where we are next week. We'll be back online next Tuesday, and we'll see if we need to come back on next Thursday. But we're still in catch-up mode, and so it's hard to catch up if we're doing 2 hours a week for people to have to catch back up to watch these things. And so we're trying to hold them to 30 minutes or so right now and trying to do one a week until we get caught up another week or so, and then we'll go back to the longer, more detailed meetings.
And I think you have learned already, between Dr. Lamb and me, we give you very quick feedback. We do not let your work sit there very long without giving you some type of feedback. We both, or either or. If he's gone and he can't, or if I'm gone, we let each other know, and we make sure that we are monitoring and checking so that you don't have to sit there and wait. We try to give you as quick feedback as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I have nothing else, Dr. Lamb, you'll get your video posted later on this evening. Okay, I'll see you next week. Okay, bye everybody. Let me see.